An inspiring life story is the account of a moment when an extraordinary person reveals the key that unlocked the door to their success. Among the many themes explored in these narratives are triumphs over adversity and the shattering of previously established boundaries. Not only can you as an individual motivate others to chase their dreams, but you can also provide them with the means they need to keep going strong once they reach their goals. Welcome, everyone, to the Live and Learn podcast, where reflective and inspirational stories are shared and journeys are explored. Thank you so much for your time and for deciding to hit the play button and tune in. I'm excited about the journey that we're going to learn about and that we're going to engage upon today. But as I like to do with every episode, I like to start off with the reading of one of my well-crafted poems. This poem that I wrote is entitled Burden's Fate. A path half walked holds destiny in balance. Each step forward or back, an equal pull of fate. The mind resists questioning if its course is true, ignoring the warnings, failures, mercifully leaves behind. Sweat drenched, you push through the weight of the struggle until the inescapable forces are reckoning. At last, you grasp the will that sets you apart. No longer shaken, anxious, or afraid, for within the hardship lies an undeniable miracle, a purpose too profound to dismiss. Grateful now, you challenge the very meaning of the storm. Why such chaos and a story still unfolding? Why burden a world already heavy with strife? Why press upon a spirit teetering on despair? Yet the strength within is beyond imagination. Its substance a prize, only trials reveal. Though jagged and unyielding, raw and true, its solace is the weakness creeping through, never rejecting the chance to endure and rise, for sometimes hardship is the road to wisdom and hope. The meaning and message behind that poem is to embrace your hardships. Hardships are sometimes given to us for us to learn and discover a deeper meaning of life, our journey, and bring us closer to the destiny that God has laid upon us. With that being said, I'm excited and thrilled to dive into an engaging conversation with Beth Stein from Brooklyn, and he's also a champion leadership and speaker and trainer. My conversation with him has been pretty great, so you're in for a treat today. He also was an NCAA referee, and he's retired. He was doing that for 25 years. So sure he has some engaging and exciting stories to share about that. Please welcome today's guest, Dr. David Walker. Thank you, David. How are you today?
Walter, I am so glad to be on your show, the Live and Learn podcast, and I am just looking forward to some exciting conversation tonight.
As well as I'm so thrilled and excited that you sought the opportunity to meet with me today to discuss and share and inspire those who, just need, a wake-up call, a word of wisdom, or just something to instill hope in them with whatever journey they are facing. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, what led you to become the champion and leadership speaker that you are, and tell us something intriguing or interesting about you that you want your listeners to know.
Yeah, well, if I'm gonna start with my background, as you said, I grew up in a place called Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn, New York. I'm sure many of your listeners have heard of Bed-Stuy, but if they haven't, Bed-Stuy is the home of Biggie and Jay-Z and Chris Rock and Lenny Kravitz and so many legendary people who grew up in that community. But Bed-Stuy also had a tagline. It was known as Bed-Stuy Do or Die. And with that tagline, it was telling us that either you did something with yourself or the community could get the best of you. It was very difficult. I remember drug deals and gang violence and, abandoned buildings and vacant lots. It was a tough upbringing. But we survived because we always had a hope and a dream to become something better than the environment that we were living in. And as I mentioned, We're talking legends when we say Biggie and Jay and Lenny Kravitz and Tracy and Chris, legends, but because they had a mindset that says, I'm better than the community that I grew up in. And then you asked me about how did I get to talking about the champion's mind and the champion leadership speaker. And in order to answer that question, I got to go back to my birth. You see, I was born in March of 1960. And in March of 1960, there were no sonograms. There were no gender reveal parties that we know today. You know, you pop the balloon and you get a blue or pink confetti to tell you the gender of the child. Yeah. My mother was expecting me, but she didn't know my gender. You know, no sonograms, no gender reveal party. So she didn't know my gender. And her and my dad said if they had a son, they were going to name me Michael. And of course, my mother was so thrilled and excited that they had finally come up with a name, went around telling all of her girlfriends, my boy's going to be named Michael. My boy's going to be named Michael. I think my mom thought I was going to be an angel. You know, Michael the angel. No, mom, what no angels over here. But after telling all of her friends, she then comes to my grandma Martha. And she says, Ma, if I have another son, I do have an older brother, Robert. She says, if I have another boy, we've decided to name him Michael. But my grandma Martha, after hearing that news, she turns, she looks my mother directly in her eye, and she says, his name is David. Because in the Bible, David was a king, David killed Goliath, and David was a great man, and my grandson will be named David, and he will be a great man. Well, I tell that story with great excitement because that story tells me that my grandma Martha was talking to God about me before I got here. And what they saw me as, they saw me by naming me David. They saw me as a winner, an overcomer, and a champion. And because my grandma Martha put that label of a giant slayer on me, it told me that I'm supposed to live the life of a champion. And so that's why these many years later, after living the life of a champion, every day when I wake up, I give thanks to God for waking up. But then I say, Lord, I thank you for giving me another day to be a champion. And so that's where the champion leadership speaker came from, to help other people how to be champions, help other leaders how to be champions, how to excel, helping businesses champion your business, helping people champion their marriage, helping people, champion their education, whatever it is. I believe that there is a champion level to any and everything that you do. And I just want to close with this word that I heard from the legendary Les Brown. He said, it ain't over until I win. And with that tells me that no matter what I'm going through, no matter what the people in your audience is going through, no matter how it looks, it ain't over until you win.
That sounds like the quote of a champion there. So you had told me about this like adverse experience that you went through that led to you deciding to become a speaker and deciding to be a voice of influence to others. Can you share with the audience and the listeners what that story was and that moment was, and looking back on it now, how do you reflect upon it when you talk to people?
I believe you may be talking about my baseball story.
Yep.
Yeah. I was fortunate. I was an athlete growing up again in Bed-Stuy. That's what I did. I loved the game of baseball. And I got into college, and I was in my senior year of college. And I had finally developed my skill set where I was getting a look from a professional team. It was the Los Angeles Dodgers. And I had received a letter from the Los Angeles Dodgers inviting me to come to a tryout. And as you can imagine, Walt, getting that letter, I mean, I was just excited. It was a thrill of a lifetime. I am getting a letter from the Los Angeles Dodgers inviting me to come try out. And what that was telling me was that my childhood dream to be a living legend like Biggie and Jay coming out of Bed-Stuy, I was going to make it to the pros.
Right.
And so I get this letter, and just a few days before the tryout, I remember playing in the game, and I was standing on second base, and my teammate gets a base hit to the outfield. And as I'm dashing around third, running as fast as I could to come home and score a run for my team. There was a play at home plate. The throw was high. The catcher, he jumps up in the air to catch the ball. And as I go to put my foot on home base, the weight of the catcher comes down and he breaks my leg. Yeah. And I remember that day just like it was yesterday. I remember rolling in the dirt, screaming and hollering, my leg, my leg. And Walt, I got a chance to look down at my leg. And when I looked down at my leg, I knew what had happened. I knew that I was not going to make that tryout. And I knew that my baseball career was over. And as you can imagine, I was sad. I was depressed. I was angry. And then I was disappointed because not only was my leg broken, but my dreams were shattered that day. But, they say that, when you are experiencing a defining moment, either you define the moment or the moment will define you. And that was my defining moment. What was I going to do with that broken leg? What was I going to do when all of my dreams were in that particular opportunity to make the Los Angeles Dodgers? But what I did, here's how I defined my moment. I got up, I went, I rehabbed my leg, came back to school. I finished my degree. I became a teacher, a school administrator. I was a pastor for a number of years. And then something that you mentioned earlier, I refereed NCAA Division I basketball for 25 years. So Walt, when I look at what I overcame when breaking my leg and then what I have now become, here's what I say. I win. I win because I didn't let that life setback keep me from becoming something else. Oh yeah, my goals changed, but I did become something else. And you said something in your poem. You talked about challenges of life, right? Mm-hmm. That challenges come. And here's what I want to say, because I don't want to forget this. A lot of times people don't think that life is full of challenges. Absolutely it is. Absolutely. Absolutely is. You cannot have success without a challenge, right? You cannot have victory, watch this, without an opponent.
Yep.
So many people want to win, but they don't want an opponent on the other side. Mm-hmm. Right? So you cannot have victory without challenges, obstacles, difficulties. They are a part of life. And here's what I want to say. Also, what I want to say is that those things don't come as an opposition to us technically, but really what they do is they come as a partner.
Yep. Bingo. That's what I always say.
Yeah, you can't have success without opposition. So those things come to partner with our journey to tell us what's really in us, right? Imagine if the road was just wide open and there was no difficulty. Well, that's not really success. But if you overcome obstacles, overcome challenges, overcome difficulties, that is what tells you who you really are. And there's no one who's ever done anything great in life did it without slaying giants. That's the David in me when I say that.
Well, you had a couple of quotes there that I had to write down. I'm definitely going to reference you when I speak about them.
Okay.
So would you say that was your boom, like your biggest obstacle overcome or met, or would you say that there's something else you experienced that you would consider as your biggest obstacle?
Yeah, I would say it's the heaviest and the most difficult challenge to date, and one that I always reference and tell my story. But of course, going through life, there's so many. I'm in the middle of one right now. It's too early in the process to deal with it. And I always believe you can't really tell a story until you got into the other side of it. Right. So something else is that I'm going to share in the near future. But right now, that's the most challenge, of course, working and going through and building a career. You go through different things, but I always reference the baseball story because my biggest dream was wrapped up in that. And so that's why I tell that one a lot. But, being a father, having children, you experience life, you experience challenges, you experience difficulty, and you have to be determined to go through and to make it through, because God has the best things in life on the other side of the obstacle, on the other side of the challenge.
Yeah,
And you got to get to the other side to get the best that God has to offer.
absolutely. Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. So, with you being, a champion speaker and trainer, where do you foresee in, say, the next 5 or 10 years, your journey going, or the journey, or the industry as a whole? Like, where do you see you making your imprint in that industry as a speaker of, leadership, you know, telling people or trying to inspire people to have that champion mindset?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure your audience is looking at me and they probably say, well, that guy's about 41, 42, something like that. But I just turned 65 about a month or two ago. And that's a whole lot of years.
You look good for that age.
I appreciate that. That's a whole lot of years behind me and probably not that many in front of me. And so, and I'm fairly new to speaking. I haven't done it maybe about 3 or 4 years, where I'm now out there and trying to do it. So where do I see myself? I want to make the impact that God has destined for me to make. In life, you can't worry about when you start something, because of course we would all like to start things in life way younger, right? If only if I had started way younger, right? Okay, well, it didn't happen. I'm starting now, right? So with the time that I have, I just want to every day, every opportunity, get in front of an audience, whether I'm doing a keynote, whether I'm doing a workshop and training. I just want to inspire people to transform their lives. And, as I said, I am a former pastor. So the transformation of life is something that I've talked about as a preacher, every Sunday, getting up in that pulpit with a word from God, trying to transform lives. And so now that I'm just primarily public speaking now, I'm still trying to transform lives, still trying to get people to see that God has the best things in life ahead of you. And let me just throw this in, because I don't know why this came to me just now, but I'm going to say this. Sometimes we think that when we get the reward for doing something, right? Let's say the paycheck, or let's say the college degree, or whatever the reward is at the end. Somebody once said to me, there's no reward in starting, right? You got to finish to get the reward, right? It's how you finish, not how you start. It's how you finish. But one day I agree with that. But then one day I got a revelation about how God has ordained our lives, that he's already written it out in many ways. So what we accomplish has already been set before us. It's already been accomplished. So really, if it's already accomplished, then the reward is not when we finish, but actually God really rewards us for when we start, because it's already completed. So if it's already completed, it's already finished, then what do I need to do? I really just need to start, right? All I need to do is finish something, or I should say walk out something that's already finished. Right. And that's what he has done for us. And I've lived my life these last few years and senior years, knowing that it's already finished. So if he already finished it, then what's my responsibility? Well, I got to start it.
Yep, exactly.
I just got to start. And so many people don't really succeed because they won't start. You're sitting there worrying about, am I going to have the money? Later, for worrying about you're going to have the money, start. Am I going to finish the degree? Don't worry about finishing the degree, start. Am I going to build the business? Don't worry about, down the road what the business is going to become, start. So if I don't say nothing else today, I want to say to your audience, you need to get up and start whatever's in your heart to do, because God has already completed whatever you start.
Amen. Amen. Well, I appreciate that. I definitely think that, your words are an encouragement and definitely will enlighten a lot of people. We're going to, since you didn't already kind of segue to it, to my spiritual relief segment. where I'll share a couple of verses
Uh-huh.
and give my thoughts on it. And obviously, you have the floor to give your thoughts on the word that I'm sharing as well.
Sure.
So I'm reading today from Jonah chapter 4, and it's verses 8 through 10. Oh, I'm sorry, 8 through 11. When the sun rose, God provided a scorching east wind, and the sun blazed on Jonah's head, so that he grew faint. He wanted to die and said, "It would be better for me to die than to live." But God said to Jonah, "Is it right for you to be angry about the plant?" "It is," he said, "and I'm so angry I wish I were dead." But the Lord said, "You have been concerned about this plant, though you did not tend it or make it grow. It sprang overnight and died overnight. And should I not have concern for the great city of, I don't know how to pronounce
I think
it,
said Nineveh.
Nineveh?" That's how, okay.
Yeah.
And which, oh, you know, I figured you would know, in which there were more than 120 people who cannot tell their right hand from their left hand, and also many animals. What this word says to me is it speaks to resilience, in my
Mm,
opinion. Resilience is something um, that is within all of us if we have faith. You know, it starts with having faith in God and knowing that God is putting you through something to test you and to show you. A test doesn't necessarily mean God is trying to make you fail. A test means God is trying to show you what He's capable of doing for you. And it's
hmm
your job to show that you have faith in Him and that you know that He wouldn't leave you left for dead. Jonah was under the intent that this test was trying to kill him, and God said, "No, I'm trying to test you and strengthen you and show you what you're capable of." That's what I took from the verse. How about you, Dr. David?
Yeah, and you're definitely accurate in your assessment of that story. I love resiliency. Um, and we all have to have it. And again, it's kind of going back to talking about challenges and obstacles. Here's something else. If I can, you use the word faith, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, 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 Oftentimes, I heard this the other day where it was said that fear is the enemy to our faith.
Yep.
And some people may agree with that, but I say I don't agree with it. Here's what I say.
Oh,
I
you don't?
say
Oh,
no, I don't. Here's why. I say that fear is a partner to your faith.
oh,
And here's
okay.
why. I believe that fear and faith are fraternal twins.
I like that. I like that. Okay.
They look something alike. They show up at approximately the same time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your faith is the elder brother. It comes first. But then, soon as you get ready to do something great for God, here comes the twin, fear.
Right.
You
Okay.
you you
I like
cannot have you cannot have success without fear. You cannot have faith without fear. They go on the journey together.
it. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I oftentimes say they're going to ride in that car together, but the question is, which one are you going to let ride up front with you? You're going to let fear ride up front and faith in the back. If you do that, your fear is going to be say, get off here, detour, stop, pull over the side of the road.
Right. Right.
No, you got to put the faith in the front and the fear in the trunk.
Amen to that.
And let fear tell you, keep going, not too much further, stay focused. You know, so they go together. And what happens is a lot of people feel like, oh my God, I got afraid. It's not supposed to happen. Yes, it isn't supposed to happen. There's an acronym that you may have heard called FEAR, fear, FEAR. I don't know if you ever heard that. They say it's false evidence appearing real.
I have heard that. It's been a while, but I have
Yeah,
heard that
yeah.
before.
What they are trying to say with that acronym, false evidence appearing real, they're trying to say that fear is not real. Well, if fear was not real, tell me why Jesus told his disciples to fear not.
Right.
Because it is real. It is a part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
It is a partner to your faith. You will never know what your faith is without the twin coming along with it to now test your faith, to try your faith, to build your faith. And that's why I don't see fear as an enemy to my faith. I see fear as a partner. They go together to help me to become what I am. I need the emotion of fear to help to show me that I can't do this on my own. I need the Lord, right?
Right.
I need God's help. If it was unabashed, then why would I need God if I didn't have anything to worry about?
Exactly. That's what I tell people all the time. When it seems like everything is going all well and fine, life is good, life is great, and then suddenly, you hit a roadblock. Sometimes God has to remind us, hey, you still need me. I'm
You
still
still need
here.
it. That's
because,
right.
Because sometimes people feel as though they got it all figured out, and they forget, who figured it out for them.
Yeah.
And God has to remind them, I'm still here.
Yeah. And that's what he was doing with Jonah. He was reminding Jonah, you're seeing it this way, but no, Jonah, I got another plan for you. Just hold on, be patient, trust me, and it'll all work out. And, as humans, sometimes I was saying this the other day, when we read the text, sometimes we say, well, especially when it comes to the disciples, well, how come they couldn't believe in Jesus? Jesus had all this power and they were right there with him and they were having doubt and fear. Well, remember, we are reading the story in its as a history lesson post,
right.
But they were living it.
Uh-huh.
And even though Jesus was present, they were still human beings with human emotions and human fears. So Jesus would tell them something, but they had to go back and say, well, can you tell me that again? Because I didn't understand it. Right? Yeah, that's what they did. That's the truth. They did that. How you not going to, because, we was like, well, they didn't do, all this stuff, but they were just as human as everybody else. So we go through life. Life is the same for everybody. We have what I call human behavior, human responses, and sometimes fear and anxiety. All these things going to be a part of the process, but know that God is still there with us to get us through.
Amen to that. Well, that was great. I definitely, you definitely taught me something new with the whole faith and fear with being fraternal twins. I love that because, and what it really says to me too is you really can't have faith without fear because really the way I look at it is like if you're so faithful and so confident in something, then it's almost kind of like knowing the answer to a problem already. Then there's nothing to be there's nothing to be worried or fearful of. You already know the answer. So that's not even saying you have faith that the answer is right. You already know that the answer is right. You already know 2 + 2 is 4. Is that
right?
Just
You just know exactly.
So I definitely get where you're coming from. And before this conversation, I would not have. If somebody had told me faith and fear, helpmates or teammates or whatever, or fraternal twins like that, I would have looked at them like they were crazy. So I definitely appreciate you bringing that to my recollect and making me stronger and wiser mentally with that.
Absolutely.
So now we're going to go into the final segment, the fun and lighthearted segment.
Mm-hmm.
This one is called Random Ranks. What I do with this one is I usually, come up with a category or something, just a little bit random, just something lighthearted, to, kind of like get people to engage and say, oh, he said that? What made him think that or whatever? So you said it was your dream or your childhood dream to play baseball. And, God had other plans for you. So, and I think that, well, I know that God's plan is always the best plan. So what I do want to do is I want to ask you, what do you think are the top 3 athletic awards to win, such as like the NFL MVP, the MLB Golden Glove, the NBA MVP? What do you think are the 2 or 3 best national or professional athlete awards to win?
As an individual or as a team?
As an individual award.
Well, of course, most valuable player in any sport because they consider you the best in that season, right?
Right.
Um, I guess in terms of, because again, we're trying to be individuals, I would go to the sport of boxing, heavyweight champion of the world. You know, no one gets recognition like Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson,
Mhm.
them boys, you
Yeah.
know, because they were the biggest, right? The biggest, the strongest. So that's an award. So MVP, heavyweight champion, and of course, and again, I'm trying to keep it as an individual. Um, we got the great Tiger Woods, you know, that golf game, because the game of golf, and not really a golfer, but I'm a sports person.
Hmm.
It's probably the only game that you are really competing against yourself.
Right.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It it
True.
it
That's
it, does,
true.
it doesn't matter what any of them guys do.
Hmm.
I'm competing against my own mind and my own pressure. And that guy just made a hole in one. Well, he's not, the pressure's not from what he did. The pressure's on me now to, you know, to follow through. So when I see how great the Tiger Woods is, the legend Tiger Woods, and all that he did on the golf course as an individual, I would say golf champion of any major golf tournament.
Yeah, that's a really good point that you made about golf too. I never really thought about it that deep because golf really is an opportunity where like your skills and your, mental toughness and all that you encompass is really put to the test. You can be the most mentally strong, the most skilled person in a competition with other people, but you still gotta, outdo someone else where
Mm-hmm.
it's you versus you.
Mm-hmm.
So I, you really got my mind going this evening. I'm really grateful for this conversation. One thing I will say though is, and I know you might you might say, well, I thought you meant just on the field or on the gridiron. One award that I think gets underrated is the NFL's Man of the Year award. I think
Okay.
that's an award that I really have a lot of respect and appreciation for
Mm-hmm.
because of because a lot of the times we get so caught up in how skilled and how talented and how athletic these men are, but sometimes we overlook and miss out on the human element of these men and how they want to give back to others and how they put the needs and the values of others before them. So that's
Mm-hmm.
an award that I think that I would definitely put on my list, but you definitely can't go against the MVP. you know
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
you
And
can't, put anything above the MVP because the thing with the MVP award, really quick, is it gives you an opportunity to use your platform for something greater. So if you're
mm-hmm.
the MVP of something, besides being the best in your league, you're now being recognized and being seen in a bigger lens. So that's your opportunity to amplify something that is near and dear to your heart, uh, whether it's a cause or a campaign or something like that, something that you want to bring to people's attention. You get the opportunity to do that beyond being the best player in your league.
No, and I didn't think of that, and I would definitely agree that that is definitely very high on the ranks of top awards. And if you push me a little bit, I might put that to the top of mine list. Here's why. The other three, the MVP, heavyweight champion, and what was the third? Oh, Tiger Woods, winning the golf. All of those are awards that you get for what you do for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yep.
the award that you're talking about is what you do for other people.
Yep.
And that's a servant's award.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're going to stay, in line with scripture, being a servant is the greatest of all. Servant,
Yeah. Absolutely.
servant. So I you don't have to push me too hard to put that on the top because that's a servant's award, right?
Yep. Well, you inspired me a lot today, so I had to at least have you walk away with something. With at least I gave you something to walk away with.
Absolutely.
So before we close out, how can people get in touch with you? How can they find out about your books? You can
Yeah.
share your book on here. This is your opportunity, your stage to let people know I'm David Walker. This is what I have to offer. Come see about me.
Yeah. Well, as far as reaching me, they can obviously go to my website. My website is drwalkerspeaks.com. That's drwalkerspeaks.com. That's my website. On social media, all platforms, you can reach me at Dr. David M. Walker. Dr. David M. Walker on all platforms. And here is a copy of my book. It's called The Champion's Mind: How to Defeat Giants and Win. And I got the story of my grandmother in here. I got the story how I got my name. And I that book is really about how the biblical character David was such a champion. And I found a scripture, 1 Samuel 16:18, when King Saul had this evil spirit that was on him, and they were looking for someone to play the harp. And they said, one servant said, I know someone, I've seen him myself. He's an excellent musician. He's brave. He's a warrior, well-spoken, good looking, and God is with him. And I took those 6 elements and said, that's the keys, the strategies, the principles that David had to help him to be the champion. And I made a chapter out of each one of those topics. And that's where I came up with this book, The Champion's Mind. And I encourage your audience to buy the book and get it on Amazon. But if you get it from a website, I'll send you a signed copy of it. From if you go to my website, and it's a couple other free downloads on there when you go to my website. I believe that book will help you to be the champion that you've always wanted to be. Just follow those principles, and you find yourself winning, because that's what life is all about: winning.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. I thank you so much for gracing the Live and Learn podcast with your presence today. Your great messages and your great story. I'm definitely inspired and encouraged based on the messages you shared and the stories you shared today. And I hope that you all are as well. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this incredible conversation between Dr. David Walker and myself. If you want to learn more about the Live and Learn podcast and Deep Discussion Enterprises, be sure to visit my website at deepdiscussion.org. If you'd like to be a guest or partner with me on workshops or any kind of speaking engagements, you can email me at thriveforward@deepdiscussion.org. And again, thank you so much. Continue to be a light in this world, and always know that your adversity is an opportunity for you to become better, stronger, more resilient, and a light in this world that God has made you out to be. Thanks again. Take care, and God bless.